Thank you for listening to Upaya's Dharma Podcasts, an extraordinary series of talks from some of the finest Buddhist teachers in the world. I'm Joan Halifax, founder of Upaya Zen Center, and we're so happy to make these podcasts available to you. If you find this talk of benefit, please consider making a donation to support us to continue offering these recordings freely. You'll find a donation button on our podcast page. And thank you so much for listening.
This is Dharma Podcast at dharmapodcast.org. This is show number 1110. It was recorded on April 22nd, 2014, and it is titled Zen and the Art of Art. The speakers for this episode are Natalie Goldberg and Sean Murphy.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to Upaya Zen Center, and I want to always begin by thanking Roshi Joan Halifax for creating this place, conceiving of it, and then creating it, following through, and really making it a great place in Santa Fe, and a great place in the United States for us to study the Dharma. And also I'd like to thank all the residents who are here, who are really quietly supporting us while we're here, have lined up the zafus, just simple things that we take for granted, the chairs we sit in. So thank you. So, there's many things going on in the news today, and I could bring up any of them. But I want to, and I'll tell you why, I'd like to just have a minute where we recognize the Armenian massacre. There's much talk, the Armenian genocide, the Armenian massacre. I even went to a class where we studied what it was. And finally I thought, all I knew was 1.5 million people were killed, were murdered. So the words are subtle, really. So let's just sit for 1 minute remembering that, and then I'll tell you why, out of all the news, I picked that. I picked that because the title of this talk tonight for Sean and I is, what, Sean?
Zen and the Art of Art.
Zen and the Art of Art. And I became interested in the Armenian massacre because I was studying art, and I studied Arshile Gorky. Right after my Zen teacher died in 1990, I couldn't for a long time paint pictures. I had to do something abstract. And I went to Arshile Gorky, and he was an Armenian who finally escaped with his sisters to the U.S. and eventually committed suicide. And I wanted to honor his people, and through that, honor him, because he fed me so much. And that's really how our hearts open. We meet an individual, either in person or in a book, or you hear them talk, or you see their art on the wall, and you feel a kinship, and then you care. Before I met Gorky, I didn't know anything about the Armenian genocide. But after that, to think that he committed suicide and gave me so much, I cared about it. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I heard Friday night, and I feel really badly that I didn't bring her name, but you'll all know who I mean. She wrote the book Reading Lolita in Tehran, as she was talking at St. John's. She was quite wonderful. If you ever get a chance to hear her, please go. But at the end of the talk, during question and answer, she said, she was talking about all the suffering and what's happening in the Middle East, and she said, please don't be a victim. Don't wait around for people to apologize, for people to say, I'm sorry. And that really hit me, because at the same time, it's in human nature to want justice. And not only justice, to be recognized as a human being, and then if something is unbalanced, to bring it into balance. But what happens often is we lose that balance in trying to get the justice. And I thought about that when she said that, because we're lucky to have Zen. I'm lucky to have Zen as a balance, as another leg to stand on. Because at the same time that you fight for justice, this is also your one human life. And how do we honor that? And then really, for me, the practice helps me hold the suffering more, allows me to hold it all without being pulled down. So I wanted to bring that up because it mattered a lot to me, and I've been thinking about it and reading a lot lately. And how do we hold all that we're reading in the newspapers? Can we get that large and not be tossed away by it and pulled down? It's very hard. I remember my friend James L. White, a great poet in the 80s, said to me, will you, now that you know me, will you stand up if anyone says anything derogatory about gay people? And I said, will you stand up if someone says anything derogatory about Jews? And we made a vow. Because when you know someone personally, you can't turn away. So I thought tonight, we're starting after dinner, we're starting a workshop, a retreat called The Ground of Being, sitting, walking, and writing. But at the back of writing for me has always been painting. I call it my darling pleasure. And this time last year, a book came out of my paintings and essays on painting. And unfortunately, I got cancer, and I couldn't go on book tour. And one of the interesting things while I had cancer, I didn't write very much. Most of you know me as a writer. I mostly painted. And I painted because I couldn't come close in words to what was going on. But in the silence of paint, I knew I was working something out. Or not working it out, the painting was keeping me company as I went through what I had to go through. So for fun, I thought, Sean thought of this, I would show some of my paintings. So, can we do that? I've painted, I started painting in 1974, the same time I started meditating and writing. It was spontaneous combustion. Katie, do you want to come up? There's a Zafu right up front. So painting, I use the same rules. I use the same rules as I do for writing. I just paint what's in front of my face. If I make a wrong line, I just keep going. I don't try to go deep. I don't try to be anything. Painting is my darling pleasure. And you might see a painting at some point. It's on here. Can we transfer it?
My best guess is that this is just waking up. I hope that's what
It's searching for.
Oh, okay.
This one is called Vast.
Vast emptiness. So this is called Two Songbirds in the Luxembourg Garden. Whoops, we've moved on. This is Paris. This is a little French countryside I saw outside my window where I was staying, and I drew the rooftops. This is another one from France. Come on, Nat, say something deeper. And this one, there's a tree. But actually, that's the level I stay on with painting.
What does it symbolize?
Duh. I stay really dumb with painting. Unfortunately, with writing, I'd like to stay dumb, but I've gotten a little more sophisticated. But this is a barn in California. And these, when you see table and chairs, it's often I wrote in a cafe. And if the writing went well, then I drew it afterwards with the same pen I write with. I'm very economical. This is an apple tree in Massachusetts in November.
Obvious reference to the Garden of Eden.
Yes. Thank you, Sean. This suddenly I don't... Oh, this is Paris again. Come on, there's my father's shirt. It was drying in Florida. But really, I don't mean to sound superficial, because when I'm painting, I have a lot of emotions. I feel a lot. But I don't have words for it. This is a fat chair. I call it Fatty. And you'll see in a little bit another chair. It's the same chair, but I painted it differently. Oh, this is a self-portrait after I found out a student I loved very much died. Right after she died, I painted that. That's the same chair. But I gave it a little more perspective. Come on, Nat, say something smart. This is a chair, but it does have symbolism. There's my notebook, and there's a bunch of books I like. James Baldwin, well, that was that. This is another chair and table I wrote in Florida.
Say something about James Baldwin.
James Baldwin? I love James Baldwin. Have you all read Giovanni's Room? If you haven't, go home immediately, get it, and read it. This is Joan Sutherland's grandmother's couch. I was visiting her, and I couldn't get my eyes off her couch. And it was several generations. I should just shut up. Now I know why I've interviewed painters that weren't very articulate. I know why now. That's my father. Now my portraits are different. I think they go to a different level. This is in France. This is when I was teaching in France, and some of you were there with me. And that was a real phone. They have phones like that. That's my father. That's the last painting I did of my father. I've studied him. I've done probably 15 paintings of my father and wrote an essay about painting my father. These are abstracts, which I'm trying to learn how to do. I did a lot of circles, and really in its excuse to color. That's another one of my father. And you can see it's on paper that I pull out of a pad. These are all of my father.
Was his name Ben?
Ben Goldberg. I've written a lot about him.
He was a good meditator.
Yeah.
Natalie's got a great story about teaching her father to meditate.
Oh, yeah. This is my friend Helen Bigelow's backyard. And if any of you know David Park, Helen is the daughter of David Park. This is Paris. It's interesting. I've stopped painting New Mexico. I mostly I draw when I travel. I don't take any, this is Naoshima in Japan. These are all Naoshima. A red chair in an ice cream parlor. This one was hard. It seems simple, but it was hard for me to paint, to get the colors right. Color is so wonderful. I can tell you that. Color is just yummy.
What's your favorite color?
Gray. My favorite color. Oh, there's another. It's the same one of my father. I don't try to make my father look nice. Most of my paintings are happy, except my father and the self-portraits. Oh, I know what I want to tell you. It's really good. It's not good. I found that every artist always has some other secondary art form. They might even not acknowledge it. This is a sink. They might not even acknowledge it. For instance, when I interviewed visual artists, I found out my father watching Muhammad Ali fighting George Foreman.
Wow.
Pond. But they often have another art form or something in the back that feeds their primary art form. For instance, a painter up in Taos, Barbara Zering, and I call this an art form, she reads deeply. Like she'll read the Iliad. While she's painting, she'll stop and spend a half hour reading. Some artists work in gardens, are good cooks, or just walk a lot. But there's something else behind that is, in a way, freer. It's not even recognized. That's my mother, a drawing of my mother. And so, in a way, painting is the thing at my back. And I work out in painting things that I'm writing. Or not even things I'm writing, the world that I feel. This is when I was working very hard on koans in Minnesota. These are all Knocking on Heaven's Door is the title of that one. These were all I painted at 3 a.m. That one too, Crossing the Yellow River. I'm very proud of those. They were really, this one's called The Sound of Rain. These were when I was working very hard on koans. And back to Helen's backyard, a different view of it. But the main thing is, if you want to do something, do it. Pick up a pen and do it. This is when I really tried to do abstracts. These are in Tassajara. I brought oil pastels to Tassajara Zen Monastery. And Catherine Thanis, who was a good friend and the abbot of Santa Cruz Zen Center, was there. She studied with Richard Diebenkorn. And she'd look over my shoulder and say, "Nah, that's not it. Nah, that's not it." This is the Mississippi River. This is Minneapolis. It's a very old painting. This is the Schmidt Brewery in St. Paul, Minnesota. I did walking meditation in the parking lot.
The section I'm going to read has the walking meditation in the Schmidt Brewery.
Oh, great. Oh, great. This is a garage in Minneapolis. I would pass it all the time. I like old things that are not recognized, that no one notices. And so I want to bring them to life. And this, of course, is I love to eat. Things I'm not supposed to eat anymore. And you'll see a lot from Florida because when I visit, my parents lived there for the last 25 years of their life. And to keep sanity, I would paint a lot while I was visiting them. This is the ocean, the Oregon coast. There we go, a New Mexico horse. My goodness, I didn't realize there were so many on this. For the first 3 years of painting, I was a teacher in a hippie school in Taos, and I would just take the little watercolors, the 5 little cakes, and I practiced with them for 3 years. And really, that taught me, first of all, I was cheap, and I used newspaper, but it also taught me about color. I just used those very basic 5 colors. That's France again. That's the Luxembourg Gardens. So I do pictures. Really, that's what it is. New York City, from somebody's roof or somebody's window. They were high up. We were high up. Yeah, it's octopus. That wasn't really there. Oh, and here we are back. And there are supposed to be 2 secret songbirds, but I can't find them anymore because it's called 2 Songbirds in the Luxembourg Garden. Well, we're going over now, so you get an idea. Okay? I learned a lot just now, how nonverbal I am when it comes to my paintings. I'm smarter with writing, don't worry, people who came to my workshop.
Do you want to say anything about what Zen has to do with?
Oh, Sean. What does Zen have to do? Zen has everything to do. Oh, I do, thank you. This is really important. They talk about Zen art. I never say Zen art. Art is the actual practice of Zen. It's not separate. Writing practice is just like sitting, like walking practice. It's a complete practice. Painting is a complete practice. It's not some little extra thing you do to hang on the wall of the Zendo. That in itself is a practice. And we really have to learn that, because when it came over from Japan, and not only Japan, but China, when it came to the U.S., we really isolated it into a Zendo. But the practice of our lives is Zen. It's just we have to wake up to that. It's not separate. I'm glad you asked that. I meant to tell you something. Okay. Thank you.
And why do we practice?
Oh, Sean. Why do we practice? To wake up, to be alive. You can cut a carrot, And you can cut a carrot so that you and the carrot are one, so that it's huge. You can touch the bottom of existence cutting a carrot. Or you can have a materialistic relationship with it. You choose. That's all. Okay. Thanks, Sean. I can see I'm in trouble this weekend.
I have another question for you, Natalie. Do you know what year it is?
2015.
Right. And do you happen to remember when in the last century we started working together?
1900.
I think it was either 97 or 98.
Yeah.
So we've been doing this like 17, 18 years. Like some of you might have been there at some of those early workshops. Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long, and that it has already receded into the last century.
And actually, during the week, we're going to study one of the books that I had people read ahead of time was One Bird, One Stone by Sean Murphy. And he went around getting stories, American Zen stories. Because we hear so many stories from China and Japan and Vietnam and Burma, but this book has American Zen stories. And we were very connected during that time when you wrote that.
Yeah, I was first collecting these stories during, I think, 2002. And for those of you who were in the writing workshop, how many people were in the writing workshop, staying up for the writing workshop? A lot of you, yeah. It was around 2001, 2002. I spent basically a year collecting the stories, talking to more than 100 different teachers, senior practitioners. And Natalie was in Minneapolis at the time because I came up and slept on her couch and interviewed her teacher at the time and a lot of other people from that sangha.
And it was the time when I was answering the koans and did those paintings in that little apartment, the second floor.
Yeah. So, but the next year, Natalie and I taught together, or I assisted Natalie, for 3 months out of that year. And so a lot of this book was actually written in writing practices during our workshops. And Natalie would give a writing prompt, I would ignore it, and I'd write the next story. And if I wasn't through with the story, I'd write on to the, I'd just pick up where I left off and write on to the next one. And it really proved to me the value of writing practice. I mean, some things were transcribed from the interviews, but a lot of this book, half of the book, is my personal experience in gathering them. So those parts were written. And so after visiting Minneapolis, I wrote this section about, while I was visiting Natalie, I went to her Zendo that she was practicing in, met her teacher and practiced a little there, and attended a one-day writing workshop and walking meditation in the Schmitz Brewery.
Oh, you came with us to the Schmidt Brewery?
Yeah, I came with you, yeah.
Well, we had a class and I had them go to the Schmidt Brewery, which nobody would go to think of as a Dharma practice place, and we did walking meditation.
Yeah. It is a Dharma practice place, and this little story explains why. So, but I just noticed I opened to this page, and above it there's a little story about Bernie Glassman, and a lot of you know Bernie Glassman because he's Joan Roshi's teacher. And so I can't resist sharing it. After a reading Bernie Glassman gave during a book tour, a woman in attendance stood up and asked him, "What does it take to live in the now?" Glassman answered, "Would anyone who is not living in the now please stand up?" Okay, so this is a section about Natalie's teacher and workshop. Natalie Goldberg always shares with her writing students the 3 most important pieces of advice she received from her teacher, Katagiri Roshi. Continue under all circumstances, make positive effort for the good, don't be tossed away. All right, 10 minutes go, says Natalie, picking up her pen and diving into her 5 millionth empty page, one of her infamous fast-writing pens clutched between her fingers. Young for her years, dark-haired and intent, she chuckles occasionally to herself as she writes. Bending over the page, with all the earnestness of a child making her letters for the first time. But then Natalie might say, if you're doing writing practice correctly, you are making your letters for the first time. It's a spitting rain in the twilight of a Minnesota fall, and we're in the Zendo of the Clouds and Water Zen Center in Minneapolis, where Natalie is teaching her weekly writing practice class. She's come here for a year to deepen her practice with Dosho Mike Port, a Dharma heir to her teacher, Katagiri Roshi, and to go through a new level of lay ordination in her lineage. We're on to our third or fourth writing of the afternoon, and I don't remember what this particular assignment was anymore. But at this point, I'm writing about where we are. It's a former railroad warehouse, a grand old building, the Zendo on the ground floor, industrial pillars, the 4 pillars of Zen, I joked to Dosho when he showed me around the morning after Zazen. They've stripped and refinished the lovely wood floors that would cost a fortune today. Thick and deep grained, they still bear an odd array of humps and gouges. During walking meditation, one has plenty of time to notice such things, as though some variety of heavy machinery was once dragged across them. They also now bear an array of black sitting cushions, zabutons and zafus, in place of whatever railroad machinery once dwelt here. Isn't that wild? The people who built it as a railroad facility never would have dreamt what would happen. Tall rectangular windows peer over the street, through which, between the scratching of pens, come the whine of engines climbing their gears upward in city traffic. Nat is sitting, scribbling away in front of the altar, which is with its candles and ikebana flower arrangement, and 2 brass bodhisattva figures, Manjushri with sword upraised, enjoining us to keep our pens moving, and Cannon with her countless arms reaching out to help all sentient beings, or perhaps wield countless pens. As always, she'll do whatever is appropriate to the situation. This morning we chanted the Heart Sutra, and now the circling shadow of the ceiling fan blades against the pillar in front of me, alternately dark, then light, then dark again, seems to speak its echo, form, emptiness, form, emptiness. The best feature of the place, though, is the Dokusan room. That's the interview room where you meet the teacher, where Dosho Sensei gave me advice this morning on my practice, and where Natalie recently told me she'd leapt at Dosho in response to a koan she'd been trying to answer, and pinned him against the floor, glaring into his face. Don't try this in your home. And he'd responded simply, pretty good. Converted from an old bank vault, the Dokusan room is set into the brick of the back wall, its gigantic steel door with numbered dial still intact, standing permanently ajar, welded open at the hinges, lest it swing shut and trap some unsuspecting Zen student in Dokusan hell forever. Make writing your practice, Katagiri Roshi had suggested to Natalie years before when she was a beginning Zen student. Why, she'd answered innocently. Because you like it, Katagiri told her. Now, 25 years later, Natalie continues to exude unquenchable enthusiasm for the 2 practices around which her life is built, writing and Zen and painting. She doesn't make much distinction between them. I teach people to accept their mind, she says. Just like in Zazen, it's all just studying mind. No good, no bad. In writing practice, we use the same basic principle as in Zazen. You make a commitment for a period of time, and you keep the practice going no matter what. In the case of writing practice, it's usually 10 minutes. The basic rule is keep your hand moving. No editing, no going back or crossing out. Forget about spelling or punctuation. Katagiri Roshi taught me to trust my own deep mind, Natalie explains to me later, to let it come forward, not to try to be Hemingway or the best writer in the world, to let writing do writing. We're taught many structures from the outside in, but I'm using writing as a tool to come from the inside out. This approach brings a shining self-confidence. You learn to just rest in your own mind with a belief in who you are and with your feet on the ground. That it works is pretty much a proven fact. Natalie's system of writing practice is delineated in Writing Down the Bones, Wild Mind, and since then, other books, gave rise to a boom in books on writing and creativity that is still going on today. When you're writing, where do your words come from? Natalie addresses the room, now that we've set our pens down and are ready for a bit of guidance. They come out of nothingness, she answers herself. When your words come out of nothingness, writing does writing. This is the ground of creation, a connection with your wild mind, which doesn't end where your skin stops. Wild mind is not only you, it's the clouds, the wind, the glass you're drinking from, the person beside you. It's all life coming through the pen or the paintbrush or camera eye or singing voice. I'm reminded of a workshop I once did with Natalie in New York City. Oh, I'm misremembering this. This is where I did the walking meditation with you. But you do mention don't worry, the Schmidt Brewery is still coming. I'm reminded of a workshop I did with Natalie in New York City where she led the entire group of 100 students out of the building and down the street to do walking meditation in Washington Square Park. It was one of the first warm days of spring and everyone was out. People walking dogs, playing frisbee, strumming guitars, bike couriers munching sandwiches, old men playing checkers. As we walked step by slow step past them all, beneath trees with the first pale shoots leafing out from their tips, a silence fell across the multitudes. People stopped what they were doing to whisper amongst themselves, "What are they doing?" Then finally to call out, "Hey, what are you all demonstrating for?" Meanwhile, a man walked past pushing a shopping cart laden with all his belongings and shouting the 1,000 names of God in 3 languages, while no one paid him any mind at all. "We're just walking," answered Natalie. And for the next 20 minutes, we continued to do that until we become just another part of the afternoon scene, and everyone returned to their lunches and games. But now, here in the Zendo, I can tell she's about to go off on one of her rolls. Our conscious mind doesn't know much, she says. It maybe knows to go out and get some more milk when we've run out, and maybe we should leave the conscious mind for those things. Our real life unfolds some other way. We never really know who we are. Odd, isn't it? The deeper you go, the less you know, but the more awake you are. Our work is to move closer and closer. To abstract is to move further and further away, until in politics you can drop bombs and you don't really know there are people there. Life doesn't make sense. Stand around waiting for your life to make sense and you'll spend your life waiting on the sidelines. The mind, if you get out of the way, already knows the rules of art, because the rules of art come from wild mind. I still don't know a thing about writing. Is she talking writing or is she talking Zen? The distinction has dropped away. Meanwhile, across the street, the Mississippi rolls past, and over it all broods the giant brick smokestack of the Schmidt's Brewery, where you can smell from just about anywhere in the city if the wind is blowing in the right direction. The wisdom of the yeast. Natalie, in fact, assigns the class to meet for the first hour next week in the parking lot below the brewery, whose architecture she's fond of. There they'll do walking meditation as a warm-up before writing practice. But what if it snows, someone protests. Bring a coat, responds Natalie. And here it comes again, that unquenchable enthusiasm. Can you imagine walking meditation in the snow in the Schmidt's Brewery parking lot? Holy, holy, holy. So that was written probably in 3 writing practices. That was one of the ones, maybe 4 writing practices. And interestingly, the shape, although I did go back and revise, the shape with which it came out was, I think in all cases, never changed. It just came out in the right overall shape. I just went and cleaned it up a little bit.
I actually work on books in class when I assign you things. Because the energy of the class and everybody writing, I can get much higher, much closer and faster than when I'm writing alone in my house. That's why I often write in cafes, because not everybody's writing, but people are drinking and moving around, and I can pick up on that energy. And it helps us to get outside ourselves and our, small mind. I don't mean our small mind is bad. I just mean that it's hard to write from it, Because my mind, that mind wants to say, this isn't any good, Natalie. You're not very good. I hate you. If we go further, I hate you. You're dumb. You're stupid. Whoever thought you could write? Where did you get that idea?
There's too many books in the world. You're not as good as Hemingway. You'll never make money at this.
Yeah.
That's my version.
We all have that version. We all have some version. And really, what's the title again of this? The Zen of...
Zen in the Art of Art.
Zen in the Art. That's what you really face in the Zen of art. You face that mind, that monkey mind. You face it, you get to have a relationship with it, but you don't let it run your life. Just like you don't let the injustice in the world run your life. You hold it. You don't run from it, you don't cut it off, but it doesn't run things. Okay, what does run things? Nothing. Nothing except your life force. Your life force that wants something.
I'd forgotten how much there was in that section about not knowing about writing and not knowing what you're going to come up with and all of that. There's another story in the book about D.T. Suzuki, a Zen scholar, who was invited in the 1950s to speak at the Queen's Hall in London on an international panel of religious experts on the subject of the supreme spiritual ideal. Can you imagine what a stuffy convocation that must have been in the 1950s at the Queen's Hall in London? And after listening to various dignitaries hold forth on the subject, D.T. Suzuki gets up and says, how can such a humble person as myself speak about the supreme spiritual ideal? Really, I do not know what supreme is, what spiritual is, or what ideal is. With that, he proceeds to talk about his house and garden in Japan and how life there differs from life in a big city. And the audience gave him a standing ovation. Oh. So, because he was willing not to be an expert. He was the one who was willing to get up and not be an expert. You know. Can you imagine how tiresome it would have been in the 1950s to listen to all those experts talk about the supreme spiritual ideal? Natalie, let's talk about the supreme spiritual ideal.
Sean, I'm not sure I heard your answer of why you practice.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as far as practicing Zen works with my writing, with my creative writing, and I also write novels. I have 3 novels out. First and foremost, it gets the flow going. You know, it just allows the flow to come out unimpeded. But one of the reasons the flow comes out unimpeded is those voices that Natalie was talking about. The negative voices, I call it the I suck voice. You know, and it's the voice that tells you you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or you can't really do this, or you'll never get through it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just the simple practice of sitting meditation where we let go of the thinking mind again and again and return to reality. One way to say what meditation is we're returning to reality again and again, because reality only happens in the present moment. Reality isn't thinking about reality. Reality is whatever is happening in the present moment. So if we're following the breath, that's present moment practice. Practice and reality aren't about our judgments about it. And that's what the mind's spinning up when it's saying, I don't think you can do this, you'll never finish. You know. And Natalie knows I took 12 years to write my first novel. It took a long time. You know, for the first few years you're writing a novel, people are eager and they ask you about it. Oh, how's your novel going? You know, after 3 or 4 years, the questions die down. After 5 or 6 years, they don't ask. You know, but they'll talk about it if you bring it up. After 7 or 8 years, they don't want to sit near you. They don't, you know, they won't engage in the conversation if you bring it up. You know, after 8 or 9, 10 years, if you enter the room, they leave. You know, so there's a lot of negative voices that can come up about, you know, why am I doing this? Am I ever going to really finish? And so that simple practice of letting go of thoughts, returning to reality, letting go of thinking mind, returning to reality, is what gave me the muscle to deal with all those negative voices that I had, just like everyone else has, you know. It just makes your mind kind of loose in a nice way, you know, kind of makes your mind malleable. Any other questions?
I'm curious, what do you consider more important, the Zen or the writing?
Are you asking Sean?
I want to hear you answer first.
Neither is more important. Mm-hmm. When you're writing, you're writing. When you're sitting, you're sitting. It's neither is more.
You're saying you use Zen to write.
No, I don't use Zen to write. No, it's not like that at all. Writing is a practice, a full Zen practice, and sitting is a full Zen practice.
They affect each other, however, which is why we're doing this workshop these next few days. Yeah. It helps your Zen practice if you can spill out a lot of all the junk that's in our heads onto the page. You know, if you can get a lot of the words out onto the page, that affects your sitting practice. And your sitting practice certainly affects your writing practice.
I think that's why I teach sitting, writing and sitting, because I spent many, many, many years and many hours sitting with the same thought over and over and over, whole sessions, obsessed with something. And when we sit and then we write, when we write, we get to write it out. And somehow when you write it out, you can let it go. So I'm not frozen with it. And also, I think the writing keeps the sitting kosher. Does that make sense? It keeps it honest, because nobody knows what's going on when you're sitting. You know, and you could be fucking off for 20 years. But when I hear someone's writing, I know if they're coming alive or not. Because I think about it, in the early years, in the 70s, we sat our asses off. I had a Japanese teacher, and we were not fucking around. It was very austere and almost bizarre in Minneapolis in the 70s. And, people just fell asleep on their cushion for years. But what I'm saying is that, so I think it vitalizes it to have something juxtaposed with it that you do. I was so relieved when I was cleaning the toilets during sessions. I was so much more alive than when I was sitting. But I think that writing practice has taught me what sitting is and has brought me to it.
Zen practice has always, it's one of the marks of Zen practice that it's closely allied to the arts. And you can't really say that about traditional Buddhism. There are tankas and religious paintings and things like that, but there's not the close connection. You know, in Zen you've got shakuhachi, flute, ikebana, calligraphy, painting, haiku, I'm forgetting some, but tea ceremony, it goes on and on. The arts, something about Zazen seems to demand expression.
Yeah, and it's not separate. You know, the running monks at Mount Hiei that ran through the night every night, they weren't always sitting on the zafu. They were running.
Sean, do you have a third practice?
I do, I do yoga and qigong practice because I need something physical. Yeah.
But Sean, you also make music.
I also play music.
That's right.
Yep, I play guitar. Yep, write songs. Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Over there. Yeah.
I'm wondering if either of you would have anything to say about accessing Zen mind during artistic practices that are not silent. The context for this is that I recently lost function in both hands, so I'm a writer and I'm not able to write by hand or to type anymore, and I've had to start relying on a voice to text in order to do my work. And I've done a lot of different types of practices, and sitting and walking and writing, but having the verbal, I don't know. That's the question. If either of you have any
Oh, I think that you can, it'll take a little while because you're not used to it. You're used to using your hand, I guess, to write. But you'll be able to do that. You'll definitely be able to do what you did with your hand with your mouth. And so that I always say writing does writing and you get out of the way. Well, talking does talking and you get out of the way. Or maybe we call it reciting does reciting. Actually, it sounds interesting. I'd like to do that. Begin my journal, but, use a recorder. I'm so unhappy. I know. Oh, shut up, Natalie. No, I want to complain. Okay. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah.
Do you practice Zen or do you practice meditation on a regular basis?
Yeah, I do it more through art than anything else. I'm not the best sitter, but I get about 5 minutes a day. And so.
Part of what you learned from that kind of crazy sitting that Natalie talked about doing in Minneapolis and that I've done also in monastic practice is you learn to just sit through anything and then you can translate that. You learn to write through anything. You learn to do whatever you need to do through anything. You become in some way unstoppable. The Katagiri Roshi quotes are great. Continue under all circumstances. Make positive effort for the good. Do not be tossed away. That kind of sums it up. Yeah.
But you can get that by just practicing that, what you're going to do. And see it as a practice. So you don't have to, I can't do it. I can't do it. I knew how to write and my life is destroyed. It'll be hard, but you can do it. You can do it.
Anybody ever listen to Django Reinhardt? Yeah, he really only had complete use of 2 fingers on his fretting hand, and then his others were kind of fused together because he was in a fire. And his speed is amazing. And he was a guitar player before the fire, so he had to relearn the guitar to play it with only 2 free fingers, and these were he could use them a little bit for fretting. But you definitely don't hear any lack in Django Reinhardt's guitar playing. It's his speed and accuracy is amazing. So
that's interesting. Where does that come from? Because I'm hearing that and I'm thinking, I'm quitting. My fingers are fused together. Fuck the guitar. So where does that come from, that willingness to relearn it? It comes from that aching, that life force. And that's what we have to keep alive. That's, to me, what Zen practice is about waking up your life force. What did Buddha say at the end of his life, his last words? And I'm not quoting it right, but there are many translations. If born into this world, you will die, but continue with gusto. So in the face of it, what else do we do? We need to wind down, but I want to say one other thing. Since I had cancer, and I've been dealing with it for 14 months, I'm not going to tell it to you because it would be too easy. You heard those 3 things I learned from Katagiri Roshi. That took killer practice for 12 years. Continue under all circumstances. Don't be tossed away. Make positive effort for the good. Since what I've gone through, there was something he missed, or I missed, that he was saying. Now you find what the 4th thing is. But for me to just give it to you, I mentioned it in the November workshop when I was right in the middle. I was on the edge. My students who are here know that. I was filled with cancer. And I brought this up and everybody forgot. But I challenged people, what is the 4th thing? I'm not going to tell you. Because if I tell you, I just give you things. You won't search for it. You won't be hungry. I want you to be hungry. So thank you. It was wonderful to be with you. I look forward to it. And I look forward to being with everyone. I'm so glad for people who came tonight and also for people that are going to be at the workshop. And I know people have flown in from Singapore and Germany and all over, so you must be jet lagged. So we'll shut up, okay? So we can go have dinner. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So now we've been talking a lot about art, but why don't we actually experience some of it? We don't hear much music except chanting in the Zendo. So let's close our eyes and listen.
Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone will change. No one goes unchanged. The young become the old, and mysteries do unfold, 'cause that's the way of time. Nothing, no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in life you can be sure of, except rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Winter turns to spring. A wounded heart will heal, but never much too soon. Yes, everyone will change. The young become the old, and mysteries do unfold, 'cause that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in life you can be sure of, except rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Rain comes from the clouds, sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Everything must change. No one stays the same. Rain, the sun, hummingbirds, except the rain and the sun, and music makes me cry.
Sung in our very own Upaya Zendo by Bill Addison, a great Zen song, Everything Must Change. There you go.